Muted.
All right, thank you everyone for joining. This is the Children's Advocacy Day Prep webinar. My name is Andrea Bennett and I am with Kentucky Youth Advocates. And just a few things before we get started. We have muted all of your lines. If you have the ability to unmute your lines, we would kindly ask for you to refrain from that so that we can make sure everyone can hear. If you have questions during the webinar, please use the chat function that you should see on your control panel, and we will address those questions at the end. We have allowed time for some Q&A. This is also being recorded, so we will be posting this webinar onto our website on our blog by tomorrow, and we will also post the slides that go with this webinar. So if you either missed part of today or want to send it on to others who are attending next Thursday, that will be available to you. As we get started, our Executive Director, Dr. Terry Brooks, who actually just got back from Frankfurt today, he was up talking with legislators, and he has offered and is willing to give us a few opening remarks about this 2016 legislative session and why next Thursday is so important. So I'm going to turn it over to him for just a few minutes, and then we will get going with the meat of the webinar and prepping for next Thursday. Terry?
Thanks, Andrea. Just so you know, we have the rare capacity, even though this is a verbal webinar, we can see each of you, so if you're not paying attention, we're going to call you out. Okay? But we really appreciate you all joining us, and I just want to underscore the importance that we are putting on Step Up for Kids and Children's Advocacy Day next Thursday. There is a terrific education reformer from a decade ago named Ted Sizer, who always used a phrase that we face a blizzard of opportunities and obligations. And I don't think there's ever been a Children's Advocacy Day where we faced more opportunities and more obligations. I want to offer what might be a little bit unconventional hope, and that is that I really believe that we have as great of an opportunity to move the Blueprint agenda ahead in the 2016 session as any session that I've experienced in more than a decade at KYA. We have found the Bevin administration to be very open and very inquisitive about what will it take to make Kentucky the best place in America to be young. We have found, I think, an amazing number of arenas where there's common ground between House leadership and Senate leadership. That ranges from budget priorities to policy recalibrations. So I would just really encourage you not to buy what is conventional wisdom and cynicism, that this is going to be a session where nothing gets done. This is going to be a session because of budget pressures that we can't move ahead. I would actually suggest to you just the opposite, that next Thursday can be the kickoff of absolutely one of the most significant sessions that kids in Kentucky have had. I'm sure that our colleagues here at KYA will emphasize this to you, but the value of Children's Advocacy Day certainly includes public events like the rally. We do want to pack out the rotunda, but the real success of that day is what each of you individually do with it. Your interaction with your representative and your senator, making sure that we have a strong presence and a common message are all factors that can make Children's Advocacy Day a real catalyst for the rest of the session. So again, we appreciate your interest in joining us today. We're looking forward to seeing you next Thursday. And we really want to encourage you to come into Children's Advocacy Day with a sense of optimism that there are realistic and abundant opportunities to make a difference for kids.
Thank you, Terry. So we are, during the course of this next hour, we're going to go through a checklist of what you can do before, during, and after Children's Advocacy Day to make it a success, both for you and also to have the greatest impact on children. Then we have some colleagues, some of my colleagues at Kentucky Youth Advocates who are policy experts are going to talk about some of the policies we would like to promote next Thursday and get the buzz going with our legislators. And then, as I mentioned, we'll have time for questions at the end. Please submit those using the chat function. If we don't get to your question, my contact information is at the end of this presentation, and you can feel free to follow up with me following the webinar. But for now, let's get started. So let's briefly set the stage. Why do we have Children's Advocacy Day? We've had Children's Advocacy Day for over 10 years now, and this is a time when several partners come together to prioritize children and ask legislators to make them a priority in their decisions that they make during the legislative session. This year we have over 40 sponsors of Children's Advocacy Day and over 100 partners that have signed on to support the Blueprint for Kentucky's Children, which we'll talk about later, and support those policies that will make a positive impact on children. We know in Kentucky that kids face several obstacles such as poverty, child welfare, and special needs. And we also know that kids don't vote. They don't often have a voice in decisions made that impact them. So Children's Advocacy Day is a great day to have power in numbers, as Terry said, when we can all come together for a common purpose. Especially this year with the new administration, and because we will be enacting a 2-year budget, it's especially important that we have a great turnout at CAD. And we know CAD does make a difference. A couple of years ago, we were able to get commitment from Governor Beshear to restore cuts that had been made to the Child Care Assistance Program during the Children's Advocacy Day rally. And that commitment became a reality at the end of session. So we know that things that happen at Children's Advocacy Day can result in positive wins for kids. So your voice does matter. So let's talk about how you can make CAD a successful day. I know the first time I went to the Capitol, it can be a little overwhelming. And so we're trying to make this checklist as streamlined and easy as possible for you. Prior to Children's Advocacy Day, if you have not already done so, we would ask you to register. You can find a link on our website at kyouth.org, and this will make sure that we already have you on the list. It will make sure that we have enough packets and materials prepared for you, and we will also send some information and reminders throughout until next Thursday so that you have last-minute information about what's happening next Thursday. We're going to talk about the Blueprint for Kentucky's Children agenda in a bit, but if you want to learn more, you can go to blueprintky.org before CAD and look at our fact sheets, look at our one-pagers, and learn more about the solutions we plan to promote during the legislative session and next Thursday. And you can also, before Children's Advocacy Day, find out who your legislator is. If you go to lrc.ky.gov, you can click on a link that says, Who's My Legislator? It's on the home page. We would encourage you to do this to find out who represents you before next Thursday if you don't already know that. This is a screenshot of what comes up when you click Who is My Legislator. You can enter your address and click Find My District. It will pop up your district, and then you will click on a little icon that comes up, and your legislator's information will come up when you do that. That will give you who they are, what party they're with, and how to find out their contact information. And this is really key so that you can work to set up a meeting with them before next Thursday. We highly encourage you, if you can, to make an appointment with your legislators before next Thursday. We know that many of them are very busy during session. They have committee meetings and other engagements. And so we encourage you to make an appointment so that you know you have a time set. You can call this main number, and when you do, that's just the main number at the Capitol, and you'll ask for your legislator's office. What typically happens is that a staff member will answer the phone in that office. You should say that you are a constituent of your legislator, representative, or senator, and ask to set up a time for next Thursday, and mention that it's Children's Advocacy Day, which is why you will be in the Capitol. A lot of times the staff member will ask you what you want to meet about. If you already have a specific issue that you want to talk with him or her about, you can mention that. Or a lot of times we have multiple issues we want to talk with legislators about. So we'll just say that there are several issues related to children. A lot of times the staff member will take your information and will call you back to try to confirm an appointment. If they can do it on the phone right then, that's great. But I would encourage you, if they take your information, to follow up and call back to try to make sure you get that appointment set. They will likely ask for the names of everyone in your group who will attend the meeting as well. So if you're going in a group, be prepared. One other thing, if you are unable to make an appointment before the 14th, we would encourage you to go ahead and stop by that legislator's office to try to meet with them on the 14th, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Those are the key things we hope that you will do before January 14th. Now on the 14th, we have a lot of events that are happening throughout the day. We would love for you to arrive by 9:30 a.m. The rally starts at 10. We know that there is a lot of people at the Capitol every day during session, but especially on Children's Advocacy Day, so parking can be a little tight, and it also can take a while to get into the Capitol building. So we encourage you to allow extra time to get in, especially if you're traveling from another city. You will need a photo ID if you are an adult to enter the Capitol. If you are a youth or if you're bringing youth, they do not need any sort of identification, but adults do. You can enter the main Capitol building, and then registration for Children's Advocacy Day will be on the second floor of the Capitol. That's the mezzanine level. And you'll be able to get a folder that has an agenda for the day. It will have a map of the Capitol. It will also have other activities happening throughout the day, such as committee meetings. We also are going to have on the mezzanine, before the rally starts at 10, several posters that highlight the different blueprint for Kentucky's children's solutions. And we're going to have many of our blueprint partners manning those posters, and they will be available to talk with you more about the solutions we're promoting. So I encourage you, if you arrive early, to go check those posters out and talk with partners about that. You can get a lot of questions answered by those experts. The rally starts at 10 a.m. and we are very excited that we have the governor who is going to be attending the rally and speaking at the rally. We also have several youth speakers and performers, and we're also giving out several Champion for Children awards for those legislative leaders who championed bills on behalf of children in 2015. It should be a pretty fun and energizing rally, and we're very happy that we can have our new governor there to speak. So we hope to pack the rotunda. We hope to have people on multiple levels, and we'll have a great time. The rally should go for about 45 minutes in the Capitol Rotunda. Now, for several years, we get a lot of questions about what people can do after the rally. So we wanted to go through that with you today. There are several options. First of all, you can meet with your legislators. If you have an appointment, make sure to go at the designated time. We recommend getting to your appointment about 10 minutes early if you can. A couple of things to keep in mind if you have an appointment is that your legislator may be delayed or late due to other meetings they are coming from. So if you have a meeting set and it gets delayed, just be prepared to wait a little bit. Like I said, if you don't have an appointment, you could still go to that legislator's office and say that you are a constituent and just see if they're available. If they're not, we will have some notes that you could fill out and leave for your legislator so that they still know that you attended that day. You can also, starting at 12 p.m. at noon, you can attend Blueprint informational sessions. We have rooms 111 and 113 in the Capitol Annex. And right at noon, we are going to have simultaneous presentations in both of those rooms to give an overview of the Blueprint solutions. We'll have this about the same presentation in each room. We know we've packed out rooms before, so we got 2 this year. So you can go into either room, and then after the short presentation, we will have those posters that were on the mezzanine before the rally. We will have them put up in those rooms, and you can walk around again and get more information and learn from partners. So we encourage you to attend those. That will start a little bit after noon, after 12 o'clock, and that will end around 12:50. So we encourage you to do that. We also encourage you to check out the Art and Essays by Kentucky Children that is in the Capitol Tunnel. That's the tunnel that connects the main Capitol building with the annex. And then you can also attend committee hearings. We'll have a list of meeting times. Sorry, we had just a brief. As a reminder, all of the lines are on mute. So if you would please keep your line on mute, that would help us out. And we will answer any questions via the chat at the end of this webinar for those of you that joined late. Also, just a reminder, this is being recorded, and the webinar and the slides will be available starting tomorrow. So for those of you who joined a little late and missed that, I wanted to reiterate that. So please keep your lines on mute to help with the sound. A couple of other final things here in CAD. Check out the resource table under the stairwell in the annex. We will have fact sheets. We will have people there who can help you navigate. And then you can grab lunch in the cafeteria. So there's a lot of things you can do between 11 and 1 and fill that time. At 1 o'clock, we are having a reception in the Capitol mezzanine. We're going to have little cupcakes and cake pops so you can come get some dessert. And we are celebrating 25 years of the Kentucky Kids Count project. We'll have a reception. We're going to have posters displayed and inviting a lot of legislators. So we encourage you, before legislators go into session at 2 o'clock, to come and join that. And then the House and Senate goes into chambers at 2 o'clock. You need a gallery pass to observe. And if you're on the Capitol mezzanine, on the Senate or the House side, you can go up to the 3rd level, and it's on a hallway. On one of the hallways, you'll see a wooden desk with a person manning that, and there's usually a sign. And you just have to sign up to get gallery passes if you need that. So after January 14th, we encourage you to write your legislators and thank them. Handwritten notes are the best, and they go a long way with legislators. And then we encourage you to follow our social media throughout the session. And our social media handles are at the end of this presentation. So do some follow-up afterwards. Don't just leave CAD and kind of forget that it happened. So really quickly before we get into the policies, I know that sometimes people who work at nonprofits wonder about advocacy versus lobbying when this day comes up. Just as a quick reminder, advocacy is educational. It's sharing experiences, and it's building relationships with policymakers. Lobbying is getting paid by your employer to ask a policymaker to vote on a specific way, on a specific policy change or piece of legislation. So if you are coming on behalf of your employer and you're getting paid to ask legislators to support legislation, that is considered lobbying, and your organization will need to report that with the Ethics Commission. If anyone has any more questions about that later, you can contact us and we'll get you in touch with the right people to get you more information. But nonprofits can lobby. You can just only spend a certain amount on lobbying. But if you're just there as a citizen, it is okay to attend, share your concerns as a citizen or a constituent, and that is not considered lobbying. So we always just want to remind people of this when we get into advocacy. And then a few tips for meeting with your legislator. We know that legislative visits are pretty short. Your visit may be scheduled for 30 minutes, and you might have as little as 2 minutes to talk with them, or hopefully you'll get your full time. But we encourage you to be very friendly, professional with legislators, share the materials, including the fact sheets either we provided or you bring on your own, and then make sure to cover your main points. If you only have 5 minutes, it's great to be friendly with legislators, but also make sure you get to the point that you want to get with your meeting. Also, if you don't know the answer to a question about an issue, it's best to say, I don't know, and follow up. In fact, that's a great way to have a follow-up note or email to that legislator, because then it's another contact you can have with them. So these are just a few tips. Again, if anyone has more questions about that, please contact us after the webinar. And one final note, if your meeting does get canceled for any reason, make sure not to take this personally. It happens to a lot of us a lot of times, and that will be probably disappointing for you, but we would encourage you to either see if a staff member can meet with you if they have to cancel, or leave a note for your legislator. Now we are going to move on to talk about what we want to promote at Children's Advocacy Day. And very briefly, for those of you who are not involved in the Blueprint for Kentucky's Children, this was started several years ago as a way to bring child advocates together to work on behalf of children with a common goal. We at KYA staff the Blueprint, but we have over 100 partners and a core team of people that help make this happen every year. Our policy agenda is set by looking at the problems and solutions that are impacting children, and then by getting input from our partners and from legislators on what is achievable for kids in passing good policies. This year we rebranded the Blueprint into the 3 themes you'll see here. And I'm going to now turn this part of the webinar over to our great Kentucky Youth Advocates Policy team. First up will be Tara Grisham. She is the Chief Policy Officer here at KYA, and she will be followed by Shannon Moody and Stephen Lynn, who are Policy Directors here at KYA. Again, as a reminder, make sure to write any questions you have in the chat box, and we will work to address them after their presentation. So Tara, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Andrea. Good afternoon, everyone. So this year, as Andrea shared, the Blueprint policy priorities are divided up into 3 broad themes, and all of the legislative priorities that we are going to be talking about at Children's Advocacy Day fit into these areas. So I'm going to give a brief description of each of the themes, and then we're going to share the policies that fall into those. Thriving communities, first, is a key part of making Kentucky a great place for children. This means ensuring supports and systems are in place to create communities that are safe and responsive for our kids and families. To have thriving communities, we know that we need education and training opportunities for children, but also for adults and parents. We also need good governance from the agencies that provide services in our communities to make sure that those services achieve their intended purpose. We need to make sure that citizens have healthy choices that are easy to make, and we also need safe places for kids to grow up. When we have thriving communities, we know it helps launch strong families, which is also critical for making Kentucky a great place for children. For strong families, we need to help families have a strong start, but also continue on a stable path so they can provide the care that their children need. For strong families, we need healthy family functioning to support children's healthy development. We also need to make sure that caregivers have the support they need to effectively care for their children. Families need workplace and career supports so that they can earn enough money to support their family. And we know families need to be able to provide for the basic needs of their children. When we have strong families, it helps launch successful kids, the 3rd core theme of the Blueprint. To be successful, we know that children need the opportunity to grow up healthy and to become successful adults. This means for us as adults that we need to respond in a way that is developmentally appropriate for kids' age and abilities. We need to make sure kids are prevented from having negative experiences like abuse. We need to take a holistic approach to learning that recognizes the importance of learning from birth all the way through college or career training. Children need us to think about learning in a broader way, too, that meets kids where they are to promote their overall health, whether that be in schools or early childhood settings. And finally, children need us to make sure there are no wrong doors for services, meaning that wherever a child is, we are aware and we're looking for opportunities to proactively connect kids to services that help them succeed. So we're going to shift gears now and talk about the policies that fall under each of these themes. And I'm going to start off with the Successful Kids policies and then turn it over to Stephen and Shannon. The first policy in the Successful Kids arena focuses on making sure that we have an appropriate response when young children get in trouble, an appropriate response that reflects the child's age. And what the solution means is that rather than charging young children who are age 10 and under in court when they get in trouble, it's addressing the behavior in a way that gets to the underlying problems that are contributing to the behavior. Beyond being more appropriate for the child, this approach will actually lead to improved community safety as well. The next policy addresses a practice that can re-traumatize youth in court, and that is happening in a number of counties across the state. Right now, many counties are using things like belly chains, irons, or handcuffs for children when they come into court without regard for their age or their offense. We really should limit the use of shackling to children who pose a safety risk and not use it indiscriminately. The third policy in this area would help youth transition to adulthood successfully after being in trouble when they stay out of trouble. So when youth succeed in not getting in any further trouble for several years, we want to automatically erase their records of non-serious offenses. For youth who are older, we can automatically seal those records so youth move into adulthood with a fresh start. So I'm going to turn it over now to Shannon, who's going to talk about thriving communities.
Hi, good afternoon. As Tara said, I am a policy director here at Childrens Advocacy, and I'm going to discuss the priorities within our communities theme. The first priority is in regards to child abuse and neglect registry checks. Public school districts in Kentucky conduct state and national criminal background checks for all school personnel prior to initial hiring, but they're not required to perform child abuse and neglect registry checks. This means that schools can overlook cases of substantiated child abuse and neglect that were not prosecuted criminally. Additionally, since background checks for school personnel are only required when hiring, schools may not be aware of offenses that may have occurred after the hire. So we would like to ensure that schools have important safety information about applicants and current employees, and also to close the gap in abuse and neglect registry screenings. The next policy priority is in regards to sexual assault nurse examiners. When a child victim of sexual abuse under the age of 14 enters a hospital emergency room, they're often examined by a healthcare professional who does not have specialized training in collecting evidence and examining victims of sexual abuse. Victims age 14 and over in Kentucky are examined by certified sexual assault nurse examiners, or SANEs, who are trained to collect forensic evidence and reduce the patient's trauma, yet no similar licensure exists to serve younger children. SANE nurses provide comprehensive and compassionate care. They have extensive training, and they also help to ensure the accurate evidence collection. The next policy is in regards to a continuous course of conduct. Many children who have experienced repeated abuse over time have difficulty remembering the details of each specific incident of abuse. Currently, our courts require detailed information for a jury to agree on at least one specific incident to find the accused guilty. So accommodating a child's more generalized testimony on the history of abuse helps to recognize the effects of age and trauma and that trauma can have on a child's memory. Several states currently have a solution to help better protect child victims of repeated abuse, and this is known as a continuous course of conduct. And this would help to acknowledge the impact of child development on time and memory. The next policy within the Thriving Communities theme is in regards to Child Care Assistance Program. And you'll see a similar policy priority within the Families theme. I'm going to cover both combined. So the Child Care Assistance Program provides crucial support for working families who are struggling to make ends meet by offering a safe and stable place for their children to be while the parents are working. And child care assistance also helps low-wage parents find and keep jobs. So ensuring that there is an adequate reimbursement for child care providers and an increase in the eligibility level so that parents can have greater access to this important support. The next policy I'll cover is in regards to smoke-free. All children deserve to breathe clean air and be healthy, but approximately 69% of Kentucky's children live in a community that does not offer them strong protections from secondhand tobacco smoke in workplaces and indoor public places. Smoke-free policies help babies to be born healthy. They also help to reduce smoking during pregnancy and help to protect children from illness and hospitalization. The next policy, or the next priority, is in regards to funding and efficiency for the Department of Community-Based Services. The department has struggled with effectively responding to cases of suspected child abuse and neglect, as we've seen. Kentucky needs to ensure our most vulnerable children receive appropriate and timely intervention from DCBS by ensuring our caseworkers have manageable caseloads, whether that be through improved caseload management or by hiring more caseworkers. And the final policy within the Thriving Communities theme is in regards to A6 schools and ensuring equitable and high-quality education for all children. In Kentucky, A6 programs provide on-site alternatives to education for children in residential settings under the care of DCBS, the Department of Juvenile Justice, and the Department for Behavioral Health, Developmental, and Intellectual Disability. Children in these settings rely on coordinated efforts to and between the agencies who care for them, local school districts, and the Kentucky Educational Collaborative for State Agency Children, also called KECSAC, for strong educational outcomes. We would like to see a guarantee that funding from state and federal sources consistently reach students, to reimburse residential facilities for services that schools typically provide, and also to streamline statewide accountability for A6 programs. And Stephen Lynn will talk to you about the Strong Families theme.
Thank you, Shannon. So I'm going to talk about the policies that fall under the Strong Families and how these policies can launch successful kids. So the first policy talks about kinship care families and family preservation programs. So when kids have experienced or are at risk of experiencing abuse or neglect, family preservation programs can safely keep families together or reunite the families. For children who cannot remain safely with their parents, grandparents, and other relatives often step up to help raise them, commonly known as kinship care. Kinship care also offers a beneficial alternative to foster care and helps to relieve trauma children often face upon removal from their home. We know that these two programs can help support families, save the state money by investing in these families from the beginning, and it helps kids keep connected with their families. The next policy in Strong Families is talking about the expansion of eligibility for CCAP, which is the Child Care Assistance Program, which Shannon alluded to in the last theme. The third policy is enacting a state refundable earned income tax credit. And this tax credit would help working families meet the basic needs of their children and build upon the positive gains that the federal EITC has shown in reducing poverty, reducing the reliance on government support, and improving child well-being. EITC recipients spend their returns at local businesses, thereby benefiting local economies. We also know that this tax credit can help people find work and keep working, and helps move families out of poverty. Our state refundable earned income tax credit would also help the lives of 439,000 children in Kentucky. The next policy talks about expungement of low-level felonies after time has passed for parents. And after making a bad decision that results in a record, particularly a felony record, sometimes this can have serious consequences decades after sentences are served. Parents with records like this often have a hard time getting jobs, furthering their education, and finding stable housing, which will impact their children's overall well-being. Clearing these records for parents so that they can take care of their children can help increase the opportunities for parents to get a job, can help parents obtain higher education. And research has also shown that parents with work and family connections are more likely to stay on track and not reoffend. The last policy in the Strong Families theme is the Uniform Residential Landlord-Tenant Act. In Kentucky, 2 out of 3 renters live in communities where the URLTA, that's the Uniform Residential Landlord and Tenant Act, has not been adopted. This leaves renters with little or no safeguards for habitable and safe housing. URLTA offers protections to renters and to landlords by balancing protections for landlords with the health, safety, and privacy rights of tenants. URLTA also promotes good health and improved housing stability for renting across the entire state. It also provides protections for military families who are located near the bases in the state of Kentucky. And it offers protections to responsible landlords during the negotiating process. And that is all the policies for the Strong Families theme.
Great. Thank you so much, policy team. As you all can and probably heard, we only have just a few things we're trying to get done with our partners in 2016. But really, it does speak to why January 14th and Children's Advocacy Day is so important. I did want to say, because the legislative session just kicked off officially yesterday, many of these bills have not been filed yet, or they don't have bill numbers yet. But what we plan to do by next Thursday is any of these bills that do have bill numbers, we will have a printout with all of those bill numbers for you. If they don't have a bill number yet, I would encourage you, if you're interested in any of these policies, to still talk with your legislators about an area of interest, and you can just mention that you don't believe there's a bill filed yet, but you hope that there will be very soon. that happens a lot. Sometimes it takes a while before bill language is finalized and a bill is drafted. I see some questions coming in through the chat function. After a few final reminders, we will get to those questions. So if you've been holding out your question, go ahead and put it in the chat function at this point, and we'll try to get to as many of those as we can. We hope that the steps before, during, and after CAD helps you figure out how to prepare and make next Thursday successful. In case you joined the webinar late, we said that this webinar is being recorded, and tomorrow Kentucky Youth Advocates will post a blog with the recording of this webinar. We will have the slides, and we also have several of the Children's Advocacy Day materials that you will receive next Thursday be available to you tomorrow on that blog. So please look for that. And again, if you had people that could not attend today's webinar but who are coming next Thursday, please forward that blog to them. The information we provided here is also relevant throughout session. So if you're not attending next Thursday, please go ahead and use this information and try to set up a meeting with your legislator later in session. We have a 60-day session. It's a long session, so there is time for you to meet with your legislator if you can't come up next Thursday. Finally, throughout the legislative session and next Thursday, I encourage you to follow Kentucky Youth Advocates on social media. We will be tweeting throughout the day, and we have hashtags for next Thursday that will be actually printed on the folder that you receive. So we encourage you to take photos. If you meet with your legislator, take a photo and tweet it. Tweet it at your legislator and using the Children's Advocacy Day hashtags. We hope to create a buzz on social media as well. And throughout the day, we'll also have tweets about where the next activity is happening, so you can follow us on social media to kind of help you navigate throughout the day as well. My contact information is here on this slide, so if there is something that we don't get to during the Q&A, but hopefully you still, or if there's something you still need answered, please feel free to email us afterwards and we will follow up. I see some questions coming in, and I'm going to turn the first question, if it's okay, to Tara. Someone had asked about the bills that were promoted during last Children's Advocacy Day and what happened to them. We had some successes in 2015, so Tara's going to highlight those successes, and then we'll move on to the next question.
Thanks for that great question, by the way. It is great to reflect on what successes we can achieve when we all come together and work on a combined and shared legislative priority list. But last session during the General Assembly, there were 3 blueprint bills that passed. One was Senate Bill 119, sponsored by Senator Julie Rocky Adams, with help from Representative Rita Smart, who had a companion bill. And this addressed the issue of making sure that teachers in our public schools have the information that they need to know how to recognize and report signs of abuse and neglect among children. Another piece that passed, also with bipartisan support and by chamber support, was House Bill 8. It was sponsored by Representative John Tilley and championed by Senator Whitney Westerfield in the Senate. And it extended protective orders to victims of dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking. And we knew that many teenagers fell into that category where they couldn't seek protective orders before, even if they were experiencing that violence. And finally, House Bill 429 passed, which was sponsored by Representative John Tilley, and it created a child care advisory council to help promote a strong child care sector in Kentucky. That is an important sector that we know supports the families that need child care to be able to go to work and earn a living for their family. So we had 3 blueprint successes, and those folks will be recognized actually among some other legislators at the rally next week.
Great. Thank you, Tara. The next question came from Stephanie, and she asked if there was any more talk about the increase in the child care assistant reimbursement funding that was set to take effect on January 1st. And I'll say a couple of things and then see if our policy folks would like to weigh in. From our understanding at this point, the new governor is discussing what best action to take. We know that there was kind of a hiccup at the end of the Bashir administration, and some regulations that should be filed were not filed before he left office. And so we are working really hard with Governor Bevin's administration to try to see how we can best support providers, not only with this particular announcement, which was some federal funding that was left to be used, but also in the next budget, how we can best support child care providers. So we're not exactly sure where that specific funding stands, but we are working on it. And I'm not sure if Shannon or Tara wanted to weigh in any more on that.
I think you covered it, Andrea. Thank you.
All right. The next question comes from Robin, and she asked to review lobbying in a little more detail. And I'll say a couple things and then see if Tara wanted to add anything. But kind of as a brief review, if your organization is a 501c3, a nonprofit under that classification, your organization is allowed to spend some proportion on lobbying. There are two different ways the federal government allows you to report your lobbying expenditures, because you can only do a certain amount. Your either finance officer or executive director, if you do participate in lobbying, should know which way you all practice to report. So that's for the federal government. For Kentucky, if you are going to be paid to ask a legislator to vote yes or no a specific way on a specific piece of legislation, then you do need to report that. You need to be a registered lobbyist, and you can register with the Kentucky Legislative Ethics Commission. There's a form both your employer and you have to fill out, and then each month you have to report to the Ethics Commission during session what issues or bills you lobbied on. And that's what we are required by the state to do, so that our Kentucky Ethics Commission knows what organizations and individuals are lobbying. Those are kind of the main things. If you are a citizen and you are just going as a constituent on your own because you're interested in children, this is not considered lobbying, even if you ask your legislator to vote yes or no on a bill. If you are just a citizen, you are allowed to do that, and you don't have to report anything. The fuzziness comes sometimes if you work for an employer and you're not quite sure if you're representing your employer or just a citizen the day that you're going to meet with a legislator. And in that instance, I would encourage you to talk with your supervisor or main person at your employer that handles this, and they can probably give you the best guidance. But again, if you are just sharing educational information about an issue and not referring to a bill, then this should just be informational in not considered lobbying, even if you're getting paid. So I'll let Tara, if she wants to add anything to that.
So one thing I would add is that Andrea mentioned the Kentucky Legislative Ethics Commission. Their web address is klec.ky.gov, and they are very helpful. So if you do have a question about whether you should be registered or not, you give them a call. You can find their contact information on that website. They are very helpful about answering specific questions. The other piece, I would just add another resource for nonprofits. If you have questions that are more broad about lobbying versus advocacy, there is a national nonprofit called the Alliance for Justice. Their website is www.afj.org, and they have a lot of good information on their website.
Great, thank you, Tara. The next question comes from SWHS Gear Up, and they ask, up to what age do legislators consider a person a child? Typically, the definition is 0 to 18. However, in some instances, depending on the certain issue, for example, youth who are in the foster care system, they could choose to remain when they turn 18 in the foster care system through age 21, which was actually a bill that several of our foster care youth and partners worked on a few years ago. So if they chose to stay in the system until 21, they would technically still be considered a child. I don't know if our policy folks want to add anything to that, but most of the bills we work on, they address children prenatally to age 18. All right. Let me see if we have other, I don't see any other questions in chat at this point. So we'll give just a couple of minutes, and if you have a question, please submit that via the chat function, and we still have some time to address them. All right, so we have not received any additional questions. For those of you who know Kentucky Youth Advocacy, oh, we do have one that came through from Troy. Is there an age limit on the kids you invite to CAD? Also, how do you get buy-in from schools for CAD? We welcome various groups of children and youth of all ages at Children's Advocacy Day. Typically, the way we've gotten groups of youth at Children's Advocacy Day is that either a partner of ours or we work directly with some groups of youth, just see if there's interest. Some groups of youth that are coming have been working on various policies that will be talked about and promoted at Children's Advocacy Day. And usually from the school perspective, we will rely on the leaders of those groups of youth to contact the school, because often they have relationships with them and can get that permission. I know this year we have over 200 youth coming, and we are really always interested, if you have a group of youth that would like to come, in trying to make that a successful day for them as well. So there's not really an age limit. We often have college students that come as well, because we know they're still impacted by many of the things that we're working on. And Tara, I think, wants to add as well.
Yes, we welcome even young babies there. I can say from experience, I've had a 9-month-old at Children's Advocacy Day, and legislators love babies. But on the school point, I would say, too, that a lot of schools have policies where you can, if you approach them ahead of time, you can work out a solution to have a student attend. So we are also happy to assist in any way. If we need to send a formal letter stating that people are in attendance, we can help on that front.
And we know that youth and children are very effective advocates at Frankfurt. Many of our biggest successes with bills and priorities have come from children and youth themselves, and so that's why we try to get them to speak and be leaders at the rally, give awards, meet with legislators. We need adults too, but youth voice is very powerful.
I know if you use the term educational enrichment opportunity within schools, that is warranted as an excused absence. So therefore, it would be an educational opportunity to attend CAD with your high schooler, middle schooler, or even youngster in elementary school. It's a learning opportunity that schools can embrace. So if you use that language, it's appropriate.
Great. We love that we have former teachers working on our staff. All right, well, I don't see any other questions. I was about to say, if you know KYA well, you know we like to end things early. So unless I see any questions pop up, we're going to conclude this webinar, and we are so excited to have you all next Thursday. Thank you for taking time to join. And as I mentioned before, if you have any additional questions that pop up, please let us know. We are here to help and to make next week a great day for kids. So thank you all, and everyone have a great week.